Welcome to the Wellbeing Whiz Omnicast. I'm Bevan Thompson, the Wellbeing Whiz, and I'm an anxiety management coach. Each week, my Omnicast is a podcast, it's a video recording as well, and we look at various ways to handle anxiety with guests. We chat about how they handle anxiety, how they've experienced it, and also the things they would suggest to help you guys get over it as well. And I obviously throw a few tips and hints in there as well from my work. So hope you enjoy it. Here's this week's episode. Hi there, welcome to the Wellbeing Whiz Omnicast, episode number 26. Now, I've got a super duper guest today. I'm a little bit excited, actually, because this was just a personal crusade of mine. For no other reason than I read this lady's book when I first started coaching. I was like, you know what? I follow her on Instagram. I'm going to ask her if she'll come on the podcast. And guess what? She has. The lady's name is Christie Mims. She is the founder of Coach Pony, which has been an amazing resource for me and lots of other coaches, founder of Revolutionary Club. And here she is. Hi, Christie. How are you?
Hello, I'm great. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much for joining me from, is it sunny LA you're in, or whereabouts are you?
Sunny Oakland, California.
Oakland, California. Well, tell you what, sunnier than Manchester, England, which is the place on the planet. Give Seattle a run for its money when it comes to rain. So do you want to tell us a little smidgen about yourself before we start? What you actually do and why I'm such a big fan?
Yes. So I founded Coach Pony, where I and my team help new life coaches learn the business side of coaching so that they can get happy paying clients and succeed as a coach. Because I personally believe the world is a better place when there's more coaches helping people reach their potential. But to do that, those coaches have to support themselves. So we're here to help you in that beginning phase, get going and get clients. And that's it.
And to be honest, this is the whole reason why I wanted you on, because obviously, I talk about anxiety all the time. I'm an anti-anxiety coach, manage it, learn how to sort of live with it and look after themselves. And when people look at people like yourself who are inspiring people who are it's like, well, they can't be anxious. There's no way, they're so very confident. They're so very together. So I was like, whether she suffered from anxiety or not, it'd be great to have her on and have a chat and see how she deals with it. So is it something you've kind of suffered from in the past at all?
Well, I feel like every entrepreneur has anxiety at some point. It's just part of being an entrepreneur. I think in my case, it's situational in terms of, when you don't know what's going to happen next, you can start to get a little bit anxious, especially when you make that shift from an employee to an entrepreneur, which is for coaches, what most of us do. We don't start out as a coach as our first job. So, so for sure, I've absolutely been anxious about things in different times of my life. And, I think that's pretty normal.
Well, that's good. And yeah, I think that's the point. I think that there's a realization of situational anxiety versus kind of general anxiety disorder and people having problems with anxiety, but it can grow very quickly from situational to life-changing and life-ruining kind of anxiety. And I think it's how you manage those situations that stop you from becoming an anxious person, for want of a better phrase. So is there something that sort of you do in general if an anxious situation come up? You could mention to our listeners, maybe if something strikes you as an anxious situation, how would you mentally deal with it?
That's a good question. So one of the things I really like to do is at the beginning of my day, I like to think about what's going to happen and is anything going to kind of stress me out? And if it is, how would the best version of myself handle that? And so usually the best version of myself has much better ideas than the worst version of myself.
With everybody. Yeah. I mean, don't you want to spend the day going, yeah, well, how's the worst version of myself?
And so I find that if I think about it and think about how I handle it, over a quiet cup of tea in the morning, it doesn't bother me usually later in the day because I've already sort of pre-addressed it. So I'm all set. So that's sort of how I, avoid having a lot of anxiety or having it escalate out of control on a day-to-day basis is I just sort of think about how to handle it. And
which is strange because actually being someone who was king of anxiety many years ago, king of Anxietyville, the forward thinking was the biggest problem for me. I was like, I worked in events and my big job was making sure that nothing went wrong. But actually that was the worst job for me because I could think about everything that could go wrong. So you're in a way, you've mastered the forward thinking and gone, what could go wrong and how could I solve it? And you seem to have got a barrier between that and going too far, overthinking, which is crikey, anxious people's championship move, overthinking. But yeah, that's interesting because it's something that causes the problem is overthinking and forward projecting. And you've kind of cornered it and gone, no, this is my superpower almost. This is what I'm going to deal with it with. That's interesting.
It's not always perfect, but I find writing it down and then it's like captured in the journal, right? And so I don't have to worry about it anymore.
Journaling is something that I say to my clients all the time. It's just the thing that changed my life. It's like getting all that mess out of your head onto paper and sort of stopping it swimming around and getting it written down seems to give it a little bit more clarity and a bit more. Is it something you do every day, journaling then?
No, I wish I was better at it, but it's something periodically. Actually, I do keep a gratitude journal at night, but it's very short. It's only 2 or 3 sentences.
That's
But yeah,
it's up 2 or 3 sentences to be grateful about rather than nothing at all.
That's true. That is very true. But I wish it was something that I did more of. And so I've been trying to make it more and more of a practice. There's a lot of really good journals out there. There's the Oak Journal. There's Brene Bouchard's High Performance Journal. There's a lot of interesting things that give you prompts to kind of help you shift into the best version of yourself.
That's it. A lot of people struggle. If you've got a nice framework to work with, it's sometimes a little bit better in a journal. Whereas I'm the other way. I like a big blank piece of paper so I can just go crazy and not worry about lines or, keeping conforming in any way. I just have to scribble all over. But yeah, I think journaling is something that I push a lot of people to work towards because it, like I say, helps clear your brain out and helps get rid of all those little worries. So that's good. So, I mean, when sort of anxiety strikes you and sort of you get a moment where you think, okay, this might go wrong. Is there a sort of, apart from sort of the planning the day, I'm thinking about when you get that phone call and it's like, oh my God, it's the client's going to go mad or whatever. Is there something you do before you pick up that phone? Is there something is it like a little routine you'll do to sort of stop yourself getting stressed out?
That's a good question. I don't coach privately really anymore, so I don't have that quite situation. But anytime I think I have a stressful situation, I try to take a few deep breaths, and just for a second, and then that really helps. It's so simple and easy, but it just helps.
I had a breath on a couple of weeks back, and realizing what breath can do is incredible. I just thought, even that's it. But yeah, you're right. It's the totally right thing to do. So a big deep breath and then crack on with the day.
Yeah.
It's refreshing to have someone on who's not gone, oh God, it's a nightmare, it's awful. It's good to have that opposite side where someone is talking about it and saying, yeah, I cope with it by doing this, this, and this, and this. And it's a really, really refreshing view. So,
well, I mean, the truth is I'm going to make mistakes. Things aren't going to work out, but you get past it, right? Like you do what you can and you get past it and it'll be forgotten in a few days, so it's like, and it's not gonna
like you're managing your thoughts. This is a lot of the problem that people face who work with me. Their thoughts aren't being managed. You're actually sort of thinking, well, if this happens, then that's the worst that can happen. Bosh. And you're cutting it off before it gets kind of to this big monster and this big beast that's going to sort of ruin the day, ruin your life, ruin the week. You're doing what I teach people, which is amazing. Have you done my course before? But it's you're doing that kind of rationalizing your thoughts, making sure that you're taking your thoughts to court, making sure they're all based in sense, making sure they're all based in reality, and you're doing it all in that time. Whereas we've got people, and I coach people who have to sit back and that process, they have to go through that process deliberately, whereas you seem to be doing it sort of automatically, which is mighty impressive. And this is why I've got you on, really, because it's nice to see the other side of it. And I keep making that point. So to move on to to your work life, what would you say was the secret sauce that you bring to the things that you do? What's sort of Christie's secret sauce, apart from the ponies, which I love?
Well, yeah, the ponies are a part of it because I feel like there's 3 things that at least sets Coach Pony apart in what we try to bring. And one is brutal honesty, because life coaching is an industry with a lot of sleaze as an unregulated profession. And so brutal honesty about what it's really like. It's not all standing in front of the Eiffel Tower in Paris pretending like your life is amazing. Sense of humor as well. Like, hey, we're building businesses. It's hard, but it's also amazing. And you can laugh at yourself as you do it a little bit because it should be fun. If it's not fun, why are we doing it?
Why are you doing it? Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. And then for us in particular, I bring systems. Like one of my strengths is being able to break things down in a way that's understandable. So, a lot of people tell you, oh, if you're a coach, tell your story, just get out there and tell your story and you'll find clients, or manifest. And that's not actually going to help you find clients. You really need to understand that you're running a business. And so you got to have business skills. And so what we bring is the 5 systems of, building your creating a business world that's going to function and bring you clients so you can support yourself and do this amazing work. So
And that's
sort
my
of like,
favorite phrase. The fun, was it welcome people into your fun business world or something like that? It's just stuck
yes.
with me all the time. And I keep saying it to everyone. They go, where have you got that from? I'm like, well, you want to read this book? The fun business world really struck me because I did have my own business before that, 14 years, and it was never fun. And it was never, I never enjoyed it. I couldn't look back on one day and go, oh, I really enjoyed that day. No, not one. But ever since I've been coaching, I set out with the intention that it was going to be a fun, even though I'm talking about anxiety to people who are really upset and generally having a rough time. It's that fun element that you can bring to it to make, if you've got to do it 8, 9, 10 hours a day or more, most business owners, you've got to be enjoying it, like you say. So yeah, you're right. It's probably the keyest ingredient is fun, I would say. I get a lot of myths about coaching from people. People come up to me and go, oh yeah, coaches are this, that, and that. Is there one particular myth you'd like to, or a couple even, I bet you've got quite a few, to spell about coaching in general?
Oh my gosh. Actually, I'm looking down because I made a note about this because I was like, oh, let me list all the myths.
We got pages and pages on it.
One myth, like there's a couple that come to mind. One is a lot of times coaches tell me, oh, well, I've heard the only way you can make money as a coach is to coach other coaches. And I'm like, dude, this is not a pyramid scheme. Like there are crappy coaches out there who end up trying to sell other coaches their services. And there's a lot of sleaze in our industry, but there's so many coaches out there actually coaching real people. And, I see it all the time in Coach Pony in our Build a Real Business program, coaches from so many niches having success. So I just want to counteract that. If you're a coach and you're like, the only coaches I see having success are those who are selling business coaching, I want to tell you, stop playing with your Facebook algorithm. Like, first of all, don't be swayed by that. If you show interest in one thing, it's going to show you 20 more things like that. And just know you can make money as a coach in a variety of niches. We do reports, we do research on this. Like we're tracking different niches and how they're doing. Like you can, and you will. It's a very strong industry still. And actually coaching took a huge boost during the pandemic.
Oh, absolutely.
Because people really wanted that personal development help. And they finally had the time and space to realize where they were right now was not where they wanted to be in life. So, a lot of coaches I know saw their businesses grow by 20%, doubling, 170%. I mean, so much. So, it's a really good time to be a coach. And
the pandemic was one of them things where people sat there and went, oh, yeah, they had that realization moment almost. They sat with themselves, lost in their house. They're like, you know what? I don't want to be a butcher anymore. I want to be an airline pilot, or whatever the sort of random change they wanted to make to their life. So many people had that Eureka moment almost. And like I say, the coaches out there are able to sort of give them accountability, manage the process, help them sort of set goals and all the things that coaches are able to do for them. It's enabling people to make that move. You're right. Totally.
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, a lot of people, they'll just be like, oh, well, if you're a life coach, like you should know what you're doing in your business. And it's like, no, like, it's okay to coaching and business are two very, very different skills. And I feel like there's this big myth of like, oh, you should just be able to figure it out. If you're so good at life, you should be able to figure this out too. And it's like, no, I mean, you wouldn't expect a hairdresser to automatically be able to run a salon successfully without getting some business training, right? Yes. Like same is true for coaches. Like, listen, it's a career shift. As a coach, you are going to be an expert in your niche, in your case, anxiety, right? In my case, careers and business. You're going to need to be an expert in entrepreneurship because you're running a business too. And so you're going to need to get good at both of these things. Absolutely. And it's okay to seek that help. It's okay. In fact, it's necessary if you're in this for the long game and you really want success, right? You wouldn't tell, as a coach, I wouldn't tell my clients, hey, you're struggling with this, figure it out on your own, invest in nothing. Like that's not walking the talk at all.
I'm no expert in DIY, and if my washing machine breaks, I'm not going to try and fudge it myself. I'm going to bring an expert in who can then tell me the best way to solve that problem. It's a bit like that with coaching and business management. If you're an expert in helping people with anxiety, you're not necessarily, like you say, you're going to be an expert in business straight away. You've got to invest in yourself as well. I was talking about someone else with it this morning, and it's, if you don't invest in those things that you're missing, then you're not going to make a success of it. It's just not possible. No one can do everything, as they say. Right. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a cough at the moment. So let's move on forward a little bit. Are there sort of maybe 2 or 3 people who have helped you develop the way you are in your career or your life that you'd like to sort of shout out and say, yes, these people are my kind of
Oh,
guides, if you like.
oh, that's such a good question. I feel like, I mean, for the people I know, the list is so long, right?
Uh-huh.
Because you don't get anywhere by yourself. Like my parents, my husband, my friends, you know, my one of my really good coaching friends who talks to me every week and gives me a kick in the face when I need it, you know, just uh
A friendly kick in the face. Yeah, we all need
yeah,
that.
we all do. We all do. The honest feedback where you're like, isn't this great? And the feedback is,
No, that's a toilet.
not, it's not terrible. I would not call this great. You know? Yeah,
You need
exactly.
that
So
friend.
I mean,
Everyone needs that one friend who's like brutally honest. Brutal.
yes, yes. And she kicks me in the face every week. It's just great. It's really fun for me.
Lovely.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I feel like the list is, I mean, I feel like the list is so long. It was really hard for me to narrow down, but you know,
They
everyone
know
who
you
I
well.
interacted with on the way, even the people who I don't like, but they did something that I disliked and it really impacted me and how I run my business because I'm like, I don't want someone to feel the way I felt at this stage, or, you know, I don't want to do this because I don't think it's right. You know, it was that,
That's
even that is
interesting.
really good.
Even the negative experiences, which is funny. I was reading a book. Do you know what? I'm a bit of I mention Sarah Knight every week, but she wrote a book called it's about something about not giving a fuck. Anyway, pardon my French, but it's such a great book. And she said, be driven by something you hate. And usually it's like be driven by something you love, you know, your passion. And to have that flip and say, well, I don't want my business to be like this, or I don't want to work there again, can be as much of a driving force as a positive goal. And I was like, crikey, coaching doesn't normally say that. Normally it's kind of like, oh, fluffy and positive. But I'm glad you've got that similar kind of view. You know, I don't want my company to be like this, or I don't want that type of client, or I don't want this kind of situation to happen. Yeah, that's good. But yeah, I do mention Sarah Knight every week. I'm not trying to get a commission on her books or anything. It's just that one of the books I've read recently and it's stuck with me and I keep mentioning it. Okay.
It's a powerful book then.
We've mentioned sort of journaling and things like that. Is there a sort of daily practice that you do that you'd recommend to the listeners and watchers that would really help them business-wise, life-wise, anything really?
Yeah, I think the things that have helped me for the most part, I mean, I like the usual stuff. Like I eat breakfast and I try to work out in the morning and or stretch at least, you know, and
I stretch
take
towards the
second
coffee machine and back like that.
and I try to read at least 10 to 20 pages of a book that's, you know, gonna fuel me in some way, often related to business development or productivity or performance or something. But the other thing that I do that I think helps for the most part is I also, when I end my workday, for the most part, not always, because being an entrepreneur is, you know, not a straight 9 to 5 job, but
When
I'm
is the
done.
end of the workday, really? It just carries
Yeah.
on.
But I try really hard to be like, hey, it's 5. Like I'm gonna go take a walk with my husband, or, you know, I'm gonna go have a glass of wine with dinner and like I'm done, you know, for now. Like I'm not saving lives. No one's gonna die if they don't hear back from me at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday. So, you know, it's trying to really keep the boundaries in place as much as I can. And I fail at that periodically, but yeah, I think that has really, really helped me because, you know, it's being an entrepreneur. There's no, you know, you're the engine for everything. And so you've got to be really careful about your own energy and giving yourself a break, you know,
Absolutely.
so that you can recharge.
And quite often entrepreneurs, small businesses do it from home, so you're never actually really away from it. Especially this time as well, being most people have been working home anyway. But it's that, yeah, the temptation to sit there, open your MacBook and have another little look and send another couple of emails or start working on another project. It's like, yeah, to have that cut off and to go for a walk with a dog, or like say, have a glass of wine, watch the film, whatever. It's so important to just
Yeah. It's a
keep fresh.
marathon and not a sprint, you know?
Do you know, I'm going to have that printed on a t-shirt.
Awesome. I love it.
Now, I'm a bit obsessed with time travel. I've got a couple of courses, video courses about traveling back in time and changing your past by the way you look at it, things like that. And so I've become a bit of a time traveling expert with my hypnotherapy and past life regression and all sorts of things I do. Is there one, if you could time travel, you could borrow my time machine, is there one thing you could say to your 20-year-old self that would sort of, you'd like to tell them, let them know, or give them a bit of advice?
Yeah, like first of all, change your haircut. But that would be for like, what are
I'm
you doing?
sensitive about haircuts. 20-year-old me, I have a lot of hair.
I mean, I would say to my 20-year-old self a couple things like no learning is wasted. So even if you feel like you're kind of like lost or struggling, which I felt for a long time because I was surrounded, you know, I had a lot of friends who were like the guy who played with trains works for Amtrak. The person who liked to argue is a lawyer and at the SDNY, like the person who always wanted to be a doctor is a doctor. Like, so a lot of my friends were very clear what they wanted to do and they did it. And I was never clear for a long time. But the learning is, I learned use stuff throughout my whole career and it took me to some interesting places. So that's great. And don't be afraid to do things. Like, don't let fear stop you. Fear definitely slowed me down a little bit in terms of starting my coaching business. It took me a while to like finally quit my fancy pants consulting job and to do that. But like, yeah, I mean, life's too short. Don't let the fear stop you. I mean, sometimes it can pause, make you pause, which is not always a bad thing.
There's a reason why fear exists sometimes. Yeah. But at the same time, don't let it freeze you to death and don't let it stop you taking the leap sometimes is, at the other side of fear is success. And, you've got to be brave to go through it. But yeah, you're right. It's that, if you could tell yourself that when you were 20, crikey, the things you do. But yeah, I definitely say put less product in your hair, Bev. It's going to fall out when you're 40. Oh, I had lovely curly long hair. I'd say, look, enjoy that while you can, young man. I always mention with me, I would say your thoughts aren't you. If I'd have known that at 20, crikey, I'd have took the world on. Like the doubts and all that, they're just passing through your mind. And, it took me till 38 to realize that, which is a lot longer than it should have taken, really. But no one ever tells you that. So I'm going to try and push to get it in schools, 4 or 5 year olds. If you say, look, those thoughts that go through your head, they're not all you. Just because they're in your voice doesn't mean they're you. And that'll stop people doubting themselves, stop people fearing situations a little bit more, I think. But yeah, that's my one thing I would say to 20-year-olds and me anyway, apart from the hair. So I like the next two. These are always my favorite two questions, the last two. What's one question you would have liked me to ask that I haven't asked you?
Oh, I've been thinking about this. I'm not sure. The only question I could come up with, because we're coaches, so I'm so focused on that, is what are the unexpected joys of being a coach? Why is it worth pushing past anxiety to do it?
I always do this. Hang on. So, Christie, let me ask you, I've just thought of a really interesting question. What are the unexpected joys of being a coach?
So when you talk about being a coach, we often talk about two things. One is you get to impact lives. And I do not want to like lessen that at all. That's amazing. When I get an email from someone who is like, because of you, I was able to change my career, or whatever it is, or because of you, my business now hits 6 figures or something like that. I mean, that's amazing. And the other thing is the freedom we talk about. So those are the two, like you can design your life as a coach and that's awesome. But one of the unexpected joys for me is the thing that I realized is I get to actually employ other people. And so because of my business, I get to help the economy and help others do what they want to do, right? Whether that's a graphic designer or another coach who works with me or something else. Like, it's such a joy to think my business is having an impact, not only on my clients, but on my vendors and on my employees and, like on the ecosystem, like I'm
spreading it out through the community almost. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we forget that because it's, you're naturally so focused on yourself in the beginning and just getting your own thing. But as you grow your business, if you're successful, you're going to have a much bigger footprint than you could ever imagine. And so like, I think that's one of the unexpected joys of what we do is because you can create a business, whether it's private coaching or group coaching or something else that can grow and expand, then you can support not just your clients, but so many other people. And by doing that, like have this huge impact. And so that's a real joy to me. Like I think about that.
Like that. What did he say? Like there's always that thing where they put on Facebook and all this, if you buy from a local business, you're not just spending money, you're buying the child's shoes or you're getting, it's that kind of feeling, isn't it? Your business is then, helping another small business, which is then helping a person buy their children's shoes or whatever. It's that kind of real community vibe. Yeah. And I can see why that would be. I'm hoping my business will get that big one day.
And the other thing that I think is nice that we don't think about is if you're an employee right now and you're thinking about something like this, like the great thing is another joy, you can never get fired again, right? From a job.
No matter what you do.
Yeah. You'll never have another terrible employee review to face.
If you do,
unless you're really hard. Yeah. Unless you're really hard on yourself. But like, that's like a joy too of like, hey, like you've created, I've watched some people in my life have, get fired from jobs or things get unstable. And I'm still, I'm sitting here like so grateful, like, hey, I don't have to interview again. Like, hey, here I am, just, this is such a joy that I've created this really stable existence for myself from my imagination, essentially. And that's like pretty powerful, that you can think about something, and that's the final joy. You think about something and you can create it. Very few jobs give you this type of freedom.
Absolutely.
If you think about a book, you could create it. If you think about a graphic, you could create it. If you think about a group coaching program or a retreat, you can create an entire experience for someone just from your imagination. And that will fuel your life. Yeah.
Apart from your friend who kicks you in the face, they'll say no if it's a bad idea.
Oh, she says no to so many of my ideas. Many of them are bad, but
I've had some doozies that I run past people and they go, "I'm sorry, what?"
Yeah.
No, yeah. You don't get it. No, I do get it. It's just rubbish.
Yeah, you have the freedom to create terrible ideas too, which is its own passion.
Both. That's the good thing.
But yeah, to build something entirely from your imagination is a very, very amazing.
It's good, and yeah, like you said, that the reason I started my own business 14 years ago, because I was being made redundant twice, and I didn't like that lack of power. That I hated that position where I could get called into a meeting one day and be like, I'd be doing my job perfectly well, but because of the market forces or whatever, it was like, sorry, you're out on your ear. And it's like, what have I done? And that was it. I was never working for anyone ever again. The second time that happened, I was like, no chance. I can't be doing this again. This is just painful. Whereas if I'm master of my own destiny, then, only one person to blame. Yes, it led to some serious anxiety, but I'm here. But yeah, that's it.
As like from the career coach brand in me wants to just always say to everyone, like, listen, there's no security in the world anymore. Like gone are the days where working for a company you'll support your entire life and you'll get a pension at the end of it, right? That doesn't exist. Like you are your own security net. So this idea, like, I can't start a business because it's a less secure thing. I'm like, not necessarily.
Well, and you can pivot and you can change and you can, whatever you need to do, you can do to survive. Whereas if you're totally beholden to someone else, the way I see it now, it's, like this whole pandemic thing, people's lives have been torn apart just because of something they had literally no control over. And it's, at least with this, crikey, if we were struggling, we could have gone into selling hand sanitizer. We could have switched. We could have pivoted to exist. Whereas if you're relying on someone else making those decisions, then it's not quite the same position, is it? So
no, not at all.
Oh, well, so a lady after my own heart for 100% with that one. Absolutely. So the last question is always fun. It's the previous guest gets to ask you a question. So the previous guest was a gentleman called Con-Ick McFarlane Hunt this morning, the most hyphenated man in Britain. And he's an ADHD coach. He helps adults with ADHD. And his question was, what is your comfort food and how do you feel when you eat it? I think it's a brilliant question.
Yes, I like this. So my whole family is, my family's from Virginia, but my extended family is all from Georgia. So I feel like my comfort food is like things that are made in one pot, then like involve like chicken and dumplings type, and it's actually one of my favorites is something called company casserole. But just stuff that's like meat and pasta and cheese.
Oh, the three main food groups.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Like something like anything that's served in one pot that's hot. That's probably, if you eat too much of it, you're going to have to lie down.
Oh, but that's the ultimate cut. Like, anything like a big hug in a bowl.
Yeah, you feel like warm, and then all of the fat and grease hits your system in the best possible way. And it's very soothing and feels safe, like grandma's there. So,
there you go. Company casserole, you say?
Yeah, it's a pound of ground beef, pasta, and then whatever vegetables you have on hand. Cream of chicken casserole, ketchup, Worcester sauce. And so you like ground the ground beef, you put the pasta, you cook the pasta, you put it all together, you put spaghetti sauce, ketchup, Worcester sauce, salt and pepper, and then the cream of chicken soup, mix it in, put it in the oven for 20 minutes, cover it in cheese, mix it in, cover it in cheese, put it in the oven for 20 minutes, eat it. Amazing.
I'm in. Where do I sign? That sounds amazing. For a man who's about to have his dinner in a minute in England, that sounds like, I'm like, stop cooking whatever we're having this.
Yeah, so good. Don't even need a plate, just get a fork. Go for it.
I mean, when you said from Georgia, I thought you were going to say peaches. I don't know why. I just had this, as soon as you said comfort food, because I'm from family from Georgia, I thought, peaches, but no, that's just stereotyping.
I do. I love, they're one of my favorite fruits. I love peach season. So, but yeah.
Excuse me.
I think comfort food, I think heavy dinners. I guess it's like the American stereotype, right? Like we overeat.
when he asked me, I was like, do you know what? For me, it's a toasted cheese sandwich. There's nothing that can't be solved with a toasted cheese sandwich.
Ah,
There's just something like about it that's like, if I'm having a bad day, I'm like, you know what? I'll have a cheese toasty and life will be all right.
is that the same as a grilled cheese?
It's a little bit like, I think your grilled cheese is pretty special. Like when I lived in the States, I was properly into grilled cheese. But yeah, it's a similar thing, yeah.
Is there 2 pieces of bread? Or are you only putting cheese on 1 piece of bread?
Oh no, we got 2 bits of bread with a load of thick cheese in between. Whack it in a George Foreman grill. That's pretty handy. Smack it on the top to get it pressed down quite nice. Or a Breville.
Are you buttering the bread?
Well, I'm not, but people do.
Okay.
On the outside.
Yeah, on the outside. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my kind of without that. But I'm one of these hideous people as well who puts mayonnaise on everything. So I'd have to have a little dollop of mayonnaise, maybe some ketchup as well, to create like a little Barry Rose type vibe.
On the cheese?
Not on the side. You can just dip it in.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense to me. All right.
Very good. We're what was it? Nations divided by common language and cheese sandwiches. But no, honestly, thank you so much. Actually, no, I need to ask you what your question would be. Sorry, I was wrapping up then and I missed that. This could be good.
My question to the next person is, what is the greatest 80s movie of all time? And why? And why?
Oh, you can't leave me there. What is the greatest 80s movie? I mean, what's the correct answer?
Well, the correct answer is threefold, and it depends on how you define 80s movie. Are you defining 80s movie as a movie made in the 80s, in which case Dead Poets Society? Or are you defining it as an 80s movie, in which case something like Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
You see, yes, I would go with Ferris personally, either Ferris Bueller's Day Off or, embarrassingly enough, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Right. Yes. Also good. And even some people might even say something like Top Gun.
Yeah. Not so much for me. Like maybe Ghostbusters or.
Then there's Flashdance. There's Pretty in Pink. There's 16 Candles. There's the whole John Hughes era. I mean,
Breakfast Club. Yeah.
Breakfast Club. Yeah, Breakfast Club could absolutely be.
This is a can of worms. This is like, wow, that is a brilliant.
So I feel like you should devote a lot of time to this question with the next call. And
to be honest, the entire podcast could be a discussion about the best 80s movie.
I mean, the 80s gave us so much. It's
E.T. I mean, they're all coming off the top of my head now. E.T. was brilliant. Yes.
Yeah.
You see, I'm of that age where the 80s was when I first started going to the cinema. I'm like, I was born in 74, so.
Dirty Dancing, 80s movie.
Again, even it's considered quite a girly movie, but I would still quite happily watch Dirty Dancing, absolutely. And then you've got all the classic action movies like Rambo and sort of even Predator. Was that the 80s maybe?
It was Terminator the 80s? And then there's also Back to the Future. Did you say that?
Oh my word.
Yeah.
This is too much of a, I tell you what, I'll have to ask everyone that comes on this question because it's too big for just one person to answer.
Yeah. I've really put a lot of thought in it. So.
That's surely your next book. So how can people, if people want to get to know more about you and find out about you, where's the best place to discover more about Christie?
The best place is to come to coachpony.com and just join our, grab our free guide if you're interested in being a coach, and join our email community. And we've also got a podcast, the Coach Pony podcast. So if you
indeed, I'm a big fan.
Oh, that's good to hear. So yeah, season 2 is dropping in a week. So so if you like to listen, that's a great way to connect with us as well. And I'm on Instagram at Christie Coach Pony, which I'm finally actually active on. So
I've become a bit of an Insta obsessive recently. Yeah, I kind of started doing all my stuff there because it seems to suit coaching actually. Insta, especially my niche. You say niche, whatever.
I say niche as well. You're not alone in that. I've lived in England. You
can speak the lingo, but it's like get more out to people with the video and with the sort of almost like infographic type stuff, especially about anxiety. It's perfect for that, and it seems to suit the audience a lot better than I was trying with Facebook, and it just wasn't the same. I just think Instagram seems to be a community that's better focused for what I'm doing. So definitely hunt down Christie on there and check out her podcast because she accompanies me on my dog walk once a week, and it's great, and you have some really great coaches on there actually talking a lot of sense, and it's good to listen to. But I just like to say personally, thank you so much for coming on. It was a really brave random request, me going, please come on my podcast, my little podcasty person, please come and talk to me, and you did, and I really, really genuinely appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm delighted to be here. It's been really fun.